The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, which means, God, I hope, I'm Ken Napzok.
And it means, unless I'm having some sort of Kafka-esque event like Ken, I think I'm Joseph Scrimshaw? Yeah, I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
You are Joseph Scrimshaw, and maybe a fever dream some other time will make us think we're some other podcasters. It's been a fun weekend, busy life weekend. Joseph and I love coming to ForceCenter as not just fun to hang out and talk to our ForceCenter friends, but just to crawl into that ForceCenter Star Wars bubble. And it's healing, Joseph. It's healing.
It is. It's like a little Bacta tank of talk.
Man, you just that's a tagline that now it's like I'm writing this, I'm back to tank of talk. That's the center of the galaxy was a thing I said one of the first episodes, and I thought, well, I'll replace that later. And then, like a good band name, Deep Blue something, it just sticks around.
It just sticks. Yeah, and we should consider the implication by claiming that we're a core world. Maybe we should be broadcasting from the outer rims. Who knows?
Yeah, I want to be one with the galaxy, all of the galaxy, not from the center with some snooty coastal elite coursing vibe. Oh, a lot of fun. It's a fun start to the show today. It's going to be great. We got some great questions, including one I kind of knew was coming. And I'm glad I was going to actually give you hey, this one's coming, Joseph. And I forgot because you and I are very busy. And then you picked it because the Force willed it. And it's a great question from our pal Garrett coming the way. We got news. We got a lot to dive into. Before we dive into all that, I want to remind you that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. A little bit later, as always, we'll have our ForceCenter recommends an audiobook we think you should try out on us, and then the deals keep on rolling.
That's right. Always two or more deals there are. But right now we got two. This one is from Insight Editions. They're a publisher of a ton of great Star Wars books and other pop culture books too. They are offering 35% off across their website with a special ForceCenter code. To get your discount, you can enter the coupon code FC35, or you can visit the website with this link, insighteditions.com/discount/FC35. This week, we are once again recommending the Insight Editions book, Secrets of the Jedi. This is one of my personal favorites. It's got a bunch of just kind of fun rundown of stuff about Jedi history, all the different Jedi of the era, weapons. It's got some secret little codes where you can get out the Orabesh and then you can decode things. And we wanted to highlight this because the Secrets of the Sith is coming out soon. So familiarize yourself with the Jedi so you can learn to know the Sith. Anyway, if you're interested, check it out with the code FC35.
I love this. I love this book. I have this book too. And the little Orabesh decoder, if you will. Mm-hmm. Because this book didn't exist when we were young, I think I pull it out every now and then just to kind of relive the summer of '83. I would love that back then.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I love about it so much of it. It's written from the perspective of Luke of let me get down some thoughts after Rey has left Octo, but before I've projected to Crate. Yeah. So it's this real specific, interesting sort of, it's light canon, but interesting to be in that headspace. So it's got a lot to offer as, an adult fan, but then it is just man, it's so perfect for kids to have that imagination of, I'm going to decode the secrets of the Jedi.
Love it. Much to decode. And you can pick that up from Insight Editions. Again, use that code FC35. Star Wars and Life Adventures. Like I said, like a lot of folks out there with the world returning, reopening, or normal, whatever you want to use, just means I have to go outside a little bit more, which is somewhat been more of a struggle for me, Joseph, than I would have thought. I like my house. I like staying inside. A lot of things going on. We're busy and all those things, but Star Wars seems to always find its way into our lives, Joseph. Any life or Star Wars adventures to share today?
Yeah, no, definitely. It is fun how that Star Wars is just kind of everywhere, both inside and outside. I had a nice weekend for the most part. My wife was busy working, so I rewatched a David Lynch film that I haven't seen in a long time, Blue Velvet, and was reminded that, oh yeah, this was edited by Dwayne Dunham, who's also an editor on Star Wars. So even when I don't watch Star Wars, I'm kind of watching Star Wars. And then on Sunday, got out in the world, went to the new location of Amoeba Records, which is this. It's basically just like a cathedral to pop culture and physical media. They have records, CDs, books, posters. They even have a little section of toys, and they've got this new location in Hollywood. And they had an old Secrets of the Empire Dash Rendar action figure.
Whoa!
Which I haven't just picked up and looked at in a long time because I haven't physically encountered Dash Rendar for quite a while. And wow, all due respect to Dash Rendar fans out there, but it is really funny to me how 90s he is. It is the style of all those early Power of the Force where they're much more buff, even Luke, but he's buff and he's got big blasters. And I forgot that the placement of his belt makes it look like he's wearing an old medieval cod piece.
That's right. Yes. Oh, that's the best.
Yeah.
I love you, Dash.
So it was great. Just great to see Dash in the wild. And then, the other kind of Star Wars adventure that I wanted to share was a small one, but one that does kind of impact my day to day, which is I finally put up a Star Wars poster right above my computer, right above my desk. So it's above me, looking down on me as we record. And I sometimes have analysis paralysis about what to hang on my walls. Right. So like for me, this is like, hey, it's right above my desk and I look at it all the time. So this is a big decision. But it is one of my very favorite posters. It is the 1978 re-release of Star Wars. It is by Charles White III, and the first one that Drew Struzan did anything on, because Charles White invited Drew to help him with some of the faces to make them actually look like the characters. And it's the one that is it's sometimes called the circus poster because it's the one that is a cool poster. But then it's got that meta level that it looks like a poster that is on a wall and then it's kind of been torn away a little bit. And I just love this one. It's in that school of early Star Wars posters where some of the elements are like, yep, that's exactly it. That's exactly what Luke and Leia, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher look like. But then like Darth Vader has a collar on his cape because so it's like, it's got some of that like early, some of it's entirely accurate, and some of it's kind of wild. But I just love already in 1978, there is that aesthetic of nostalgia that it's always been a part of it. Of 1 year later, we're looking back at this movie and its impact on the real world with this cool design of the poster on a wall.
Love it. Great choice. Yeah. You have to, if you haven't already, I'm sure you're going to post a nice picture, right? With maybe a cocktail in front of it.
Yeah, I will try to post a cocktail picture with my poster, but
toasting the nostalgia in Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely love this one. So those are just a few of my Star Wars adventures. Star Wars finds its way to me always. How about you?
Well, first of all, I got to one of the things now that it's a little easier to move about the cabin. I got to get to the new Amoeba Records because the old location was just a regular destination for me, especially when it opened in mid 2000s. I mean, I really do think one of the reasons I have debt I'm still struggling to pay off is I wasn't saving up the money in my 20s when instead I was going to Amoeba Records and buying $100 worth of CDs every week. I used to do a thing where it's like I wouldn't have a basket. I just would hold the CDs in those little plastic cases that they're in with the handles, and I just would hold them until I couldn't anymore, and that's when I knew it was time to go. And
I like the no basket approach. That's wise.
Because if that'd be $400 if it was in the basket. So I've been missing I think I can take my old swing through the nostalgia there. And then I put this tweet out as part of my life adventures. A lot going on, but I spent 2 days. 2 actual 24-hour periods of time trying to remember a little-known radio single from 1995, and a lot of folks know that's when I was a rock DJ from about 94 to 98, and I couldn't remember. It's from John Doe, who, of course, was one of the founding members of the band X, along with Exene Cervenka, who he was married to at the time. She went on to marry, for a little bit, Viggo Mortensen. There's some pop culture trivia. But I couldn't. He went solo, and he had a project called the John Doe Thing. and he had a 1995 album, and I couldn't remember the single, and I remember loving it. And I spent 2 days, and it's not on Spotify, not on Apple Music. Like, you can type in John Doe or the John Doe thing, and that year, 95, was not in the discography. Like, you couldn't, so it was like this lost album, and I finally remembered it from an album called "Kissing So Hard." The single was called "Fallen Tears," and when I finally found Joseph, the sigh of relief, you could be heard 3 counties. I was like, finally, and I tweeted about it, and it's a very narrow focus, small demographic tweet, and I love when Pete the retailer from Star Wars Minute, he'll like some of those very narrow focused pop culture tweets from me. Because I know we're all in that same era, and he's like, oh, probably like, yo, yeah, John Doe thing. Great. Thanks for the reminder. So that was part of my weekend.
That's a great fun adventure. Man, I know that feeling, and it can be kind of rare these days, right? When there is a fact that is not easily Googleable.
Yeah.
And it connects you back to that sense of like, I'm sitting here in my home, but I'm also kind of being Indiana Jones, trying to uncover an old truth.
Good weekend to be Indiana Jones. 40th anniversary of Raiders and the James Mangold Wars on Twitter. Yeah, and it's because I say like the John Doe thing was the name of the band or the project, but I couldn't remember that. So I kept typing the John Doe Experience. No, the John Doe Trial, the John Doe, and nothing was coming up. And and then I couldn't remember the album name. I couldn't, and I was 1995 radio single. You try to do the long paragraph Google search, nothing was coming up. And then finally, some YouTube channel had something up, and I got it. And there you go. It's very much. I feel like I was searching for a wayfinder to Exegol.
Well, I'm glad you got to experience that sigh of relief. That is yet another close to Star Wars adventure I had this weekend. I lost some writing time on Saturday in the afternoon because, like, I'm going to sit down and write. And then I just out of the blue, because everybody's talking about the great anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I was like, hey, can I stream Young Indiana Jones anywhere? And then I went down a whole rabbit hole of the whole history of that show. Anyway, we can talk more about that some other time, but yet another related to Star Wars adventure.
I would love to do maybe a Force-Center Jones look at Young Indiana Jones Chronicles stuff, because I loved that series. And it's a series that gave us Rick McCallum working with George Lucas. So come on.
That's right. I mean, just watch that and think of how much swearing went on behind the scenes to produce a great educational show.
Patrick Flannery's on the phone call. Boop, yeah. That's that. So the only other Star Wars venture I really had, I do the Lego brick building on my Twitch channel, my YouTube channel, roughly every Sunday afternoon. Just build a Star Wars Lego set. I even kind of thought of you, because this is one of the ones that I think it tickles your kind of Star Wars funny bone. I love the micro fighters, which are the little Lego sets, usually about 100 pieces, and it's a Millennium Falcon, and Han sits on the top of it, right? So I got one. It is the AT-AT versus Tauntaun microfighter set. So you got Hoth Luke on a Tauntaun with saber and blaster firing at a walker with a AT-AT driver sitting on the top of it. And just what a fantasy booking of just, could you imagine? I know maybe in Battlefront 2 you can act this out in some way, but do you imagine Luke on a Tauntaun going head on with a walker?
Yeah, I think you can actually do it in Battlefront 2, and it's not going to go well for you at all.
It's not going to work out. It's almost like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, like when the Oliphants show up or whatever, and you got to reform the line and charge against the walkers on your Tauntaun.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
Some Star Wars silliness. That is what's going on in our lives, Star Wars Adventures, Life Adventures. We love just sharing our Star Wars lives with all of you, and we're going to dive into the news. And we have a lot of news to get to, Joseph, and it's all over the map. And some of it dives into areas where you and I don't often go, don't like to go, and so we actually are going down some of the paths, and then we're stopping. We're stopping at the gift shop. We're not going in. And we'll talk about that as it comes up here. But a lot of fun stuff. At the end of the day, we are just excited for the Kenobi show. We're really excited for Andor. And a lot of little tidbits are popping out based on interviews and some from our photos, which we won't really talk about. We'll get to all that as we get going here. But, Joseph, I want to dive into this. Big one here. We knew this was coming. The Ewan and Pedro chat. Ewan McGregor and Pedro Pascal were on the Variety, the Emmy-winning Variety internet digital series, Actors on Actors, and the tidbits came flowing on out of this little interview here, Joseph. So let's dive into tidbit by tidbit here. First one I went with here is Pedro Pascal revealed that they have not shot Mando season 3. Now, Pedro is about to start The Last of Us for HBO, the adaptation of the video game series, scheduled to shoot according to reports from July 2021 to July 2022. I'm sure I'll have an offer to. And that we know that also combining all of these little tidbits in one thing, Book of Boba Fett we know is wrapping up. Reports of insiders calling Book of Boba Fett Mando 2.5. So while none of this is surprising, Joseph, let's talk about what this might mean for the series story-wise with Mando 3, and definitely now coming a little later. What it would mean for Pedro maybe once again not being on set as much. I'm not saying that's the case at all. I'm saying let's just talk about what this might mean here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some really interesting stuff about what that might mean for Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett being Mando 2.5. Right. And, a little bit of delay on Mando season 3 is not a huge surprise to me because it really does feel like it is heading into this completely different story arc, right? If it was like, the season of Mandalorian season 2 was, hey, Grogu or Din found Grogu a Jedi, and then the Jedi was like, great, and now go get him a lightsaber. Like, well, that's going to be season 3. Like, it's such that part of the chapter, that part of the story is done now, and what's coming next. That as much as I want Mando season 3 right now, I would understand if it's a little delayed. For Book of Boba Fett, I think what I'm excited about with this show is for, Boba Fett to wrestle a little bit with what it means to be a bounty hunter or criminal kingpin, maybe, and also a Mandalorian. We kind of got the answer of how he felt about being a clone, which is he doesn't seem to like that. He doesn't seem to like being called a clone. He might acknowledge that truth, but he doesn't seem to like being lumped in as another clone. That seemed to offend him a great bit. But what I'm curious about with the Mando season 2.5 is two things. One, is anything about Boba Fett going to have been changed because of his interaction with Din Djarin in the other Mandalorians? Like, how does Boba Fett's sense of honor match or conflict with Din's? And how does he feel now about the state of Mandalore? Is it, does he care at all about what the state of Mandalore is? So there's that element of moving it forward. And then there's also just like, based on what Boba Fett wants, how much is that going to tell us about the state of the galaxy? And is that the way in which it's Mando 2.5, right? Because Boba Fett could want to, just dominate and prove himself of I'm back and I'm powerful, right? Or he could just want to get by, or he could want vengeance on the New Republic or some other criminal organization. So I think depending on what he wants, we might just see different pieces of the galaxy fall into place, like the state of the criminal underworld. And are they thriving or are they being quashed by the New Republic? What's going on with the quest to take back Mandalore? Is Boba Fett getting caught up in all that? That's some of the places my mind goes.
These are great places to go. I'll follow you down these paths into the antechambers of Jabba's palace here. There's the themes, the wants and desires. And one of the things, and I remember you, as always, said it so just kind of wonderfully to the point of his return in Mandalorian season 2, like his actual big episode, his return, fighting up there with stormtroopers in Simi Valley, California. I loved how you phrased it of just kind of, dare I say, a commitment or recommitment to the violence of Boba Fett in him, who he is. I'm saying it a little less eloquently than you said it, but so we had these big questions of Boba Fett. A lot of them you're asking, these identities, clones, Mandalore. What do you think? And all those things are still at play, and all those things are things he has opinions on. But he also is still who he is, and still and even that ending, going from kind of being, dare I say, a softie. Yeah, I'll help you, Din. I have a code of honor. To Boba Fett, get out of my chair. You're dead now. It
yeah,
it paints this picture for me of what might be going, where yeah, I don't think we're getting the Book of Boba Fett, aka the softer side, and putting it up against the bigger stories that are at play with what you're talking about at Mando season 3. This is why the idea of just saying it's Mando 2.5 could just be a generic, yeah, it's just a little placeholder between season 3 or 2, or it could be, does that mean it ties into some of those bigger things? The Mandalore thing, Boba Fett having opinions about that. Maybe his opinion is don't care because I want to be this, and I am intrigued by that, and maybe even want it to be that's more the reason for the pause beyond just maybe Pedro has to shoot something or this popped up, and there's probably some logistical reasons as well. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I'm just 2.5. I want that to have some meaning.
Yeah, and I think there's no way it couldn't. The more we talk about it, right? Because it's going to invite compare and contrast. Because Boba Fett in Mandalorian season 2, he does have a code of honor, but he also has rage, right?
Yeah.
And that is some of the. Din doesn't seem to have like rage, but he has like determination of all droids are bad, kill them all.
Yeah.
And he grew from that.
Yeah.
And you just follow the Bounty Hunter Guild's guides. You go through that. He went through these moments of growth, and to see if Boba Fett's going to go through the same kind of growth, there's just a natural desire to kind of compare and contrast their wrestling with some of the same things when it comes to how do you get by with a code of honor while also absolutely being a person of violence.
Yeah, which again, he didn't emerge from the Sarlacc pit and be like, hey, I have a different way of thinking of things. Almost like reaffirmed.
This break was good for me. It doesn't seem that way. No, and we got another thing we're going to talk about later,
Yes.
so I'll stop myself from going off on Sarlacc thoughts. But yeah, I mean, what is his code of honor? That's a question that we really ask about Din. It's a question I think we're going to really ask about Boba Fett in this. And it's the exact same timeline. And they know a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me.
Yeah. The Book of Boba Fett. It's a series of thoughtful poems I wrote while digesting in the Sarlacc pit and getting out. Not quite. As far as the Mando itself, we've talked about this before, but to have this kind of come up again and be in the conversation. And now, to me, the reveal of Pedro himself saying, no, we haven't shot it, just kind of does elevate it, back to the top of the conversation chart, so to speak. I'm intrigued by it. I don't want the show to lose momentum. I think that's possible for some shows. If you take a little extended break for whatever the reason, you could lose some momentum. But it's the perfect time in a way. That I've heard people say, and we've touched on it too, like season 2 of Mando, if that was it, I'm not saying I want that to be it, but it would be a complete story. Your headcanon can fill in the rest. The Mandalorian stuff hangs over it. The Darksaber stuff hangs over it. I get that. But the story of Din and Grogu wraps up for me emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a different story with the Darksaber, I think I'd be like, I'm pretty satisfied, that Din will find his way. If Bo-Katan had been like, you're right, I don't need to get it back by fighting. Thanks for my Darksaber. Then it'd be like, okay, cool. Maybe we'll get the story someday of them taking back Mandalore. It's the Darksaber that makes it not complete.
Yeah, correct. And so that's why it's a great time for me, because when we reemerge, who knows the passage of time that they might be playing with? Is it 5 years? Is it a year, 2 year, whatever? I think we'll get some of that stuff resolved, or we'll be on the path to resolving that stuff. But it's a good time to kind of change the tone. Then we can check in with Grogu, and he can have his adolescent teenager mustache while he's training with Luke or something like that. Maybe figure out a way to do that. I don't even know if I need that, but now you can. And I think having a little time off, it allows you to expand the story, change the story, and go off in a different direction. We've touched on some of this before, but again, the fact that we know that this is probably not the case, we're not getting this anytime soon,
Yep. So yeah, it sounds like it is not coming rolling immediately after Book of Boba Fett, which I'm fine with, because we got Andor, we got Kenobi, and I can just look forward to kind of what is the new version of Mando now that he's got Darksaber and not Grogu.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not done with the tidbits. You said Kenobi, the magic words. Ewan McGregor in the interview pointed out that how excited he was. And I will say, I don't know, light spoilers. If you don't want any details, this might be the point to pause and come back later. We understand. But Ewan McGregor pointed out how excited he was to shoot with stormtroopers because he'd only previously worked with clones. In fact, he had to ask someone on the set, have I worked with stormtroopers before? No, it's only clones, right? Yeah, okay, good. And then also talked about working with a, quote, little Jawa. Again, I wouldn't call any of this surprising, particularly the Jawa being on Tatooine, all those kind of things, unless it's an off-world Jawa. Who knows? Joseph, what is our reaction to this not surprising but fun revelation, including the joy of Ewan?
Yeah. I mean, I think just taking a quick step back, I watched this whole thing, the whole interview, not just the Star Wars tidbits, and obviously, newsflash: Ewan McGregor and Pedro Pascal are very charming. But this was just a great, fun conversation. It was really fun to see them wrestle with what they could and couldn't say, and bond over how difficult it is to not share spoilers, and for them to really kind of tiptoe, and also just like that kind of. They are performers doing a job. They're fans of Star Wars, but they aren't Star Wars podcasters. They aren't Star Wars trivia hounds, you know, and always seeing that. Like, I love that moment where Ewan's like, oh, I saw a stormtrooper and it made me feel like I was 6 years old. And then it's like, I haven't been with stormtroopers before, have I? And then, there was no actual clone armor, right? That was all the clones in the movies are CGI, right? So that's another thing that maybe he remembers, maybe he doesn't, because he is an actor and he did this years and years ago, that he probably never stood next to a person dressed in full clone armor.
Yeah. Oh, that's even an additional point. And he does, and we're going to talk a little bit about the green screen and blue screen of it all. But like, look, everyone's making fun of Gwyneth Paltrow. Well, everyone's been making fun of Gwyneth Paltrow for a lot of reasons for a few years. But the whole thing, when she was like on Favreau's cooking show and was like, I was in that Spider-Man movie. And he was like, yeah. And we all made fun of her. Just like something, I don't know. You're there shooting. There's a lot going on. You don't go back and sit and watch Attack the Clones. I love that Ewan had to be like, I wasn't quite sure, but I'm pretty excited. My heart's telling me the truth here.
Yeah. And I mean, to your question about these specific revelations, encountering stormtroopers and and having a scene with a little Jawa, like he says, is very charming. It is not surprising. I don't consider it spoilers. But it's thrilling because it just makes it so viscerally real, right? That idea of just imagining, well, what's the scene? What's is this Obi-Wan bartering with the Jawa? Is this what's going on? Is he having a cocktail at a bar with a Jawa? What's going on? Jawa, totally predictable that there'd be a scene with the Jawa. The stormtroopers, I think, are even more thrilling to me. Because obviously stormtroopers can be on Tatooine. But if it's not on Tatooine, we've already got the confirmation that it's a rematch with Vader. That to me sounds like, Obi-Wan is most likely going to leave Tatooine.
Yeah.
But just even the way Ewan phrased it of, I had to walk by these stormtroopers, this idea of seeing Obi-Wan out in the galaxy, maybe on a Star Destroyer or maybe just on a different planet, and there's some stormtroopers on the corner and he just needs to walk by. That's so thrilling to me.
Oh yeah, you want him to do a little bit of a sound trick again, and make it like, well, I'm good with it being a callback to New Hope, for me at least. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Confirmation at least or something. This is one of the ones it's from his mouth. Even in that interview, like you said, he's like, I'm paraphrasing, but like, I think I can say this. This is not a surprise based on the era of the story. Stormtrooper. It's just those little excitements. One of the reasons we want to cover it today is just like we're so excited for the series. No secret, our heart's on our sleeves for the series. But just the little tiny moments to be able to just 20 years ago, Attack the Clones Phantom Menace, I would never have imagined this.
Right. It is a dream come true, and it did make me think. They make a noise to make the stormtroopers look the other way, sneak past them. Great. That'd be fine. That's a good Obi-Wan technique. Maybe this is a sneaking scene. But then there's this part of me is like, I don't know if this would be too on the nose or how fans would feel about it. But it suddenly occurred to me that we could actually see a scene where Obi-Wan does personally witness stormtroopers being shockingly precise to justify his line to Luke in A New Hope of only Imperial stormtroopers are that precise.
43 years later, 42 years, 44 years later, whatever it is, we finally get the line confirmed. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'm mostly joking. That would probably be a little too on the nose, but who knows? Star Wars sometimes does that.
Hey, sometimes it does. Going on, this is a tidbit that I wanted to pull out here. You and Pedro shared notes on working with practical Yodas, is what I'm calling it, because again, we don't know really what to call that species, but working with practical Yodas and Grogus, and excuse me, not Ian McKellen, Ewan McGregor was once again. These are my words. Once again, not a fan of digitized Yoda, green screens and blue screens. He's said this a lot while not slagging the film, so to speak, the prequels I'm talking about, but just talking about what he lost and how he did work with a puppet early on, how amazing that was. And the story of everyone calls cut and Yoda dies slowly in front of him.
Because all the puppeteers stop and Yoda just slumps over. That is very visceral and
Yeah.
funny and disturbing.
And then Pedro, of course, talks about working with the little puppet with the green fuzz on its hair. And we all, the world was a fan of Grogu, and the world is a fan of what they were able to do. And, with a different kind of technology. It's not Frank Oz and a Muppet team behind it, which is so impressive. And Last Jedi, we love having Yoda back in that way. But I want to talk about it, just particularly as prequel fans, Joseph, about how do we react to this kind of news of these films we love, but, as groundbreaking as some of the technology was, some of it doesn't hold up, and maybe it didn't even hold up then. Let's talk computer Yoda. And Ewan in this part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ewan McGregor has been shockingly consistent on this and over the years, and I think he always talks about his personal experience, right?
Yeah.
He always says, it was harder for me as an actor when there was nothing but green and blue. It was harder for me when Yoda wasn't physically there and I had to imagine Yoda. And I think that's great that he's talking about it from his perspective. And I think that's just kind of a healthy thing for us as fans to appreciate, that an actor's perspective making something isn't necessarily a commentary on the quality of the thing ultimately, or in particular of our responses, even if Ewan McGregor had a hard time with all of the CGI, as a fan, I still think he did a great job despite his concerns. So that's what's important to me, that I enjoy his performance, even if he struggled to get there.
It's not unlike hearing all the stuff back at Last Jedi, Mark Hamill, or even Boyega speaking on his experiences and how you can, in my mind, separate the two of like, let's listen to Boyega's experiences and thoughts on what he experienced in this film and maybe even thoughts he has about the role versus what's also on the screen, like you say, is still powerful to many and powerful to us. Yeah, it does have, it's weird. I have a weird reaction to it in that way where I'm just like, oh man, I don't know, I wish he had more fun making the prequels or something, but and he clearly he's coming back to Star Wars with great excitement, both feet in, and has been ready to do this for years. So the excitement was there. The memories are there. And I don't disagree with anything he's saying. I don't think you could have a puppet Yoda fight Dooku.
Very different fight.
Very different fight. And I'm behind Lucas on taking these big swings with technology. That's probably why he came back, was like, this is intriguing. I can tell a story like this. Let's do it. But to see also where we are and where we're at and the volume I've had, been on record. Sometimes it doesn't grab me, look as good as I want it to be. But I acknowledge that we are in, year one of the volume. And I know it's a couple years now, but you see, 2 seasons of Mando is what we got. It's only going to get better. I still want movies to be shot on location, and I'm looking forward to Andor for being probably not on the volume at all or as much. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited for you, and just to be like, it goes to the Carl Weathers' Grief Karga in the behind the scenes thing, saying all actors now, we are now looking at the same thing, and we can react to the same thing instead of our own imaginations, which are, even with concept art, is always going to be different. That's why I probably said Ian McKellen, just his kind of famous little behind the scenes breakdown that was captured on camera and shared with the world on The Hobbit, of just him struggling a little more on The Hobbit than with the first Lord of the Ring pictures, and just kind of talking to Peter Jackson, just like, man, I'm paraphrasing again, but just like, I'm having trouble getting there. It's a little tennis ball. It's a different thing. So all that to say, it's behind the scenes thing, but all that fuels into what's on the screen. And I think you're right to say it. And glad you did, of just like, hey, we can still take enjoyment in it. It doesn't hurt what you loved about those pictures.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like, for myself, my long journey with the prequels,
Mhm.
and sometimes you even get into that discussion of like, well, if people don't like them, it's often one of the first things they say is like so much CGI, and then somebody will counter with there are actually more model shots in the Phantom Menace, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of it just kind of at the end of the day, it's what's on screen that
Mhm.
matters, right? What's the story? And for me, the prequel stories have come to mean so much, and I get so much joy and depth from them that's what I engage with.
Right.
Then at the same time, my own experience as a actor, writer, director, I totally get where these actors are coming from.
Right.
That there's so much that goes into performing, and it really gets into uh like the real life version of crude matter versus luminous beings, right?
Mhm, mhm.
um you can absolutely imagine just what's there, but you put on a costume and it does something to your body, even if you're on a stage and there are humans watching you. The way the set is designed affects you. It gets into you in ways that we can't quite articulate. It's luminous, and I really do relate to like Ewan is. I always think Ewan McGregor is saying that like I as an actor want that luminous experience where you can't even put it into words. It just the fact that I can see that yeah, I'm on a cliff, but it's a misty cliff and there's a little bit of sunlight breaking through, and I can just see that it
Mm.
affects me on levels that are like art to me is like using the force. It's luminous. It's more than, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
this crude matter, and I'm thrilled that actors can accomplish those things with the volume and
Mhm.
with puppet Yodas.
Yeah, and I love that Star Wars is once again and probably always and forever at the center of conversations around technological advancements in filmmaking. It's just kind of part of the tradition.
It is.
I love it. And all this to say, I want to discuss it because just all the things to discuss, but just hearing you and kind of be like, man, we were on blue screens. I just all of it feeds into the excitement for what's coming, and you and
Yes.
excitement for what's coming. It means a lot to me as a Star Wars fan. Moving on here, a little bit more. Check out the interview if you guys haven't already. Anything else from the interview? You want to talk about? Oh, because I want Ewan was very excited about working with Deborah Chow. That got me more excited. Pedro, I love him just struggling to keep the secrets and how he admitted he's like, you don't tell me anything. I'll say it, but I kept Grogu because I knew it was important to.
Yeah. Oh, there are two really fun details
Mhm.
that there was that moment where they're starting to talk about practical Yodas,
Mhm.
and Ewan says, "Baby Yoda." Oh no, that's not his name, Grogu. And then Pedro's like, "Wow, you know his name." It's just always a fun discussion of how many details do these actors know. Obviously, they know the heart of their characters. They know what they need to tell this story. But that was just a fun moment where Pedro's like, "Damn, you know his name."
Yeah, yeah, love that.
Yeah. And then the other one is I liked when Ewan McGregor was talking about how devious and clever interviewers can be trying to get actors to spill secrets and getting them to go down a road and then suddenly realize, oh, wait, no, I can't go down this road.
Yeah, or then you interview Mads Mikkelsen and he'll just tell you anything you want. Yeah, this character Jen Erso's father, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, and again, Ewan excited to work with Deborah Chow and just working with the same crew from the Mando stuff because of where they're shooting and everything. Yeah, I love that stuff. All right,
Absolutely.
more on Book of Boba Fett. Going back to that, Tamara Morrison was promoting another project he's working on. And then I was speaking with Rotten Tomatoes. Joel Mears, who was doing the interview. I've had the chance to hang out with Joel at the Comedy Store patio a few times around Mark Ellis shows. Great guy, and just really conducted a really good interview. And even said, like, I got to ask you about this. And when Tamara's like, I'm not falling for it. I'm not answering. Okay, but let's talk about what we do know, Mando. And he ended up getting a couple things out of it here. We will go back in time, so to speak. We'll dive into that here during this series, Book of Boba Fett, as the show explores what happened to Boba Fett at certain points on the timeline after Empire Strikes Back and up to the Mandalorian. So, thoughts on that first, Joseph, about that revelation?
Yeah, so I'm very happy that we're going back in time. I think that makes a lot of sense. Here's my perhaps controversial thought, Ken.
Uh-oh.
I think Tamora Morrison might have meant Return of the Jedi. You know?
Yes. No. Yeah. Yes. So that was that's literally my follow up. Right? We got this giant comic book event, crossover event that everyone's talking about. We're going to discuss that big reveal of that character in a little bit here on ForceCenter, maybe a couple weeks there, give you all a chance to catch up with that comic. But I had that thought too of, like we're filling a lot of those gaps right now between Empire and Jedi. So yeah, you could be right. And then, then you can, the concerns about, tomorrow you're not reading the comics. We're going to see a lot of those tweets or something like that come out. Yeah.
And I don't think Tamora Morrison is going to care about that. No.
Nor anyone writing Book of Boba Fett. I really don't think. So I think you're right, from Jedi to Mando.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that,
Maybe.
Lucasfilm just, announced, and is the first episodes are out, that whole War of the Bounty Hunters and all of these comics are very much about that time period, and it seems important to, not Boba Fett is in them, stuff that's important to Boba Fett is happening, right?
A lot, yeah.
A lot. So here's where I'm coming from is, like we were just talking about, these are actors. They know the soul of the character. They know the importance, but they're not podcasters. They're not trivia experts. It's easy for me to imagine Tamora Morrison, an actor, doing an interview about something else, accidentally said Empire Strikes Back instead of Return of the Jedi, and we should at least question that. Instead of just running a million headlines that say, this is what's going to happen because an actor said this while being interviewed about not even the project he's on. It's not a press release. It's this amazing actor who I love with all my heart, who was exactly as you said, asked by an interviewer going, sorry, I got it. I know this isn't about Star Wars, but I'm going to try to get something out of you.
Yeah.
That's real different than a press release.
100%. This is why you and I generally say we'll wait till something hits StarWars.com for news. We'll have fun diving in, and we are today. But yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And it brought up, I wouldn't say concern is the word with me, but just like, okay, interesting, because we're filling a lot of blanks right now. And that crossover event was probably been in planning for a little bit. Book of Boba Fett, obviously in planning and pre-production for a little bit. I'm sure at some point someone probably raised a hand and said, well, this happened, and we'll see. And I'm not, this is not cynical. We'll see. I know, but it's been in the podcast conversation headlines recently of comics and books being maybe overlooked for the live action stuff, which, or even the animated shows, which I am at the end of the day okay with, because I want those storytellers to still tell the story they want. But it'll be interesting if Tamora's right on any level, Joseph. If suddenly we're like, wow, we have two storyline B, storyline C of Boba Fett, which by the way I don't think would happen. That's not what I'm really afraid of. But anyways, it just raises a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. And maybe it is, given the benefit of the doubt, maybe there are some scenes that happen after Empire Strikes Back, but they're a flashback to a conversation Boba Fett once had with Maz Kanata. And it's not like, here's his epic adventure in between that the comics are doing. But the reason that I gravitate toward Return of the Jedi is that makes a ton of sense. Like, why the Book of Boba Fett would need to cover things in between Empire and Jedi is like intriguing. Let's see where the story goes. But covering things that happen after Return of the Jedi up to Boba Fett's appearance in Mandalorian Season 2, that seems absolutely vital in terms of the storytelling, right?
It really does. And getting that answer of what were you doing all that time when Cobb Vanth is running around in your armor, which everyone's asking, I think, with a fun spirit in their hearts. But yeah, 100%. And especially if it is flashbacks, again, we don't really know. Joseph's right to point out that Tamora's just speaking off the cuff here. But it's like this is where my head went. Him just walking around the palace, going to a corner and flashing back to events and Return of the Jedi. Oh, I remember I had a good party there. Oh, I had a nice meal there. Like, oh, I don't like Bib Fortuna because he did this.
Yeah, I had a real nice date with Rystall Sant, the backup singer. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely flashbacks to, did he know his armor was still on Tatooine? And why did he choose to take it back now? Has he been working with Bib? What does he want out of sitting on that throne going forward? And how is that informed by what he did? Has he just been on Tatooine kind of stranded this whole time? All those things are kind of vital to understand where he's coming from. And the other thing for me, Ken, is we have seen it depicted in books, and certainly lots of illustrations and all that. I would love to see on screen Fett bursting out of whatever's left of that Sarlacc, just
Yeah.
covered in acid and anger. I want that on screen.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up next. I almost want this series to start. I mean, again, this is why I'm not writing these series at all. But I almost would want it to begin with like a flashback to Boba Fett inside the Sarlacc going, damn it, I just got tossed in here. Get out. Let's start
Oh,
from there.
imagine if it starts with a point of view shot from inside Fett's helmet of, bouncing off
Bouncing off.
the sail barge and going into the gullet.
Yeah.
Oh,
The explosion happening, a bunch of weak ways and Gamorrean guards in there. Yeah, that'd be something. Yeah, but I wouldn't mind. Speaking of that, like to finally get that canon answer now, we've had it in other materials, legends and whatnot, but to get that canon answer and to have it on screen and not no disrespect, we just did the big Star Wars on the page conversation last week. No disrespect to the comics, but not having that in the comics, but having that on screen, live action, especially with what the way they're able to shoot these shows now. I'd be excited to actually finally get that answer. Just here's how it happened.
yeah, absolutely. I would be surprised if that some version of that isn't in the film or the show.
Final tidbit from that, he kind of mentioned Robert Rodriguez directing more than one episode of the series. It makes a lot of sense, him being brought in, his great work with Mando Season 2. Just any thoughts on that? I wouldn't say big revelation, but something that is exciting for Boba Fett fans.
Yeah, that behind the scenes on Mando Season 2 that's on Disney Plus, there's a lot of great stuff in that, but Rodriguez was one of the revelations for me, showing how he had made basically his fan film with his action figures to show how badass Boba should be and how much energy he brought as an old school Boba Fett fan of, I have always wanted to see this. I think Rodriguez is such a great example of somebody who is both a creator and a fan, and it's paying off well. And, I'm excited to see whatever, new directors are involved. But there's a part of me is like, yeah, I want to see Rodriguez, who's probably sat around and had these exact conversations that you and I have just been having about Boba Fett bursting from the Sarlacc. Like, give me the Rodriguez on-screen version of Fett bursting from the Sarlacc. Great.
I'm absolutely there for it. And Robert Rodriguez, someone, back, you and I are same age group, Joseph, just like him bursting on the scene with El Mariachi and Desperado and everything when I was actually studying film and stuff back in the day. Like he's always been up there. I've always been a fan in a way. I, again, saw Spy Kids in the theater, but he just is really risen in the ranks, just the behind the scenes stuff, the shooting with the kids, even on Jon Favreau's show, cooking the cauliflower crust pizzas and making 5 of them for Guillermo del Toro. I just really love the energy he brings. And I'm more and more excited for this. Again, I've said before, Boba Fett doesn't always grab me. He has and hasn't over the last few decades of being a Star Wars fan. I think I'm more excited than ever for just some of these big Boba Fett answers, more questions, and just information and entertainment. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I continue to be thrilled by his appearance because it's given me everything I want. It is absolutely like the thrill and fun of this badass bounty hunter in this incredibly cool armor, being an amazing fighter. And then it's also just really diving into all the different threads of his character and building depth. It is, you get to have your Boba Fett cake and eat it too. And I'm excited for that.
And not to mention a big old side serving 5th course, actually, of the meal with Fennec Shan being there as well, who's more and more people are just really loving. So we'll update you there on that. Final one of the day, final thing here. This comes with, I'll put a rumor, spoiler alert, awooga. This is about Andor. This a lot of rumors flying out. Some were touching, some were not. And Joseph and I just kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joseph, we try not to go for set leak photos. We try not to go for anyone hiding in a parking structure or bushes, getting shots. So we're skipping some of those ones today.
Yeah, I think that for me, there is, hey, I love it. My favorite news to discuss is news that has been announced by Lucasfilm. But then, like, hey, an actor says something intriguing or an actor slips, fair enough. And then I wrestle with someone is actively out there trying to get information that the storytellers are trying to keep hidden so that they can tell the story they want to. I kind of wrestle with that. So that's my reminder of my 2 cents on on some of those photos.
Yeah, and look, every once in a while, one sneaks through, and there's a couple this past week that I saw, whether I wanted to or not, I saw them, and got me excited, and that's part of the fun. I get it, but I'm with you too. The Grogu thing's glad that was kept secret. I'm still bitter that I saw Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow meet first on a leaked set photo from season 7. Still bitter about that one. But also there's the humor side. You and I were talking off air. Remember, I don't know, 2014 range where we saw that set photo of Adam Driver in a X-Wing pilot costume. Okay. Don't know what happened there. So anyways, we're going to dive into this, but we want to give light spoiler alert for Andor stuff. Stellan Skarsgård, he is in Andor. We know that. We don't know quite what he's doing in it, but maybe we can start getting some clues. He was speaking with Servirgis Radio. I know I said that wrong, but speaking in his native tongue, his native language, which factors into the story, Joseph, about we're trying to translate it, and he just is kind of in a nice safe spot speaking about Star Wars, and he mentioned he's at least two important scenes with Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. Something we've talked about before, something we've wanted before, something we've speculated about before. So again, is this a confirmation? Was he on set with someone else and he thought it was Forrest Whitaker? I don't know. We're going to take it not just with a grain of salt, but we'll take it. It's from the source. It's from Stellan Skarsgård, who I'm going to guess knew who he was in a scene with. So let's start there, Joseph. What do you think about this news?
Oh man, just really fun that we're translating interviews back into English to get our sweet Star Wars info. Very fun, and with actors who are like, "What? I can't say that. What? Huh? What?"
Yeah.
Anyway, this is thrilling news, right? This is great. You and I are both huge fans of Saw Gerrera, so I think it's just absolutely great that he's back.
Love that he's back. I just have become such a fan of this character, and I love the starting point. Clone Wars season 5 stuff, him and Stilla Gerrera, like it's powerful stuff. It's some of the best stuff on Clone Wars. I can't wait till you and I get it on the Clone Wars report. I'd love Forrest Whitaker in that role. I love him coming back for Rebels. I love we got him back, the character back in Bad Batch for at least a bit. Love him in Fallen Order. I just love the character. But the reason I love it is it's a Lucas kind of created and handpicked character, right? And it has a lot of Lucas in him. But the questions he asks, there's even recently Gary Whitta who wrote some of the Rebels episodes with him, was tweeting out some quotes from Gerrera, which are intriguing. They're tantalizing. They're juicy. Talking to Mon Mothma, the Empire considers all of us criminals. At least I act like one. And a lot of people are like, yeah, which I am like, yeah. But then I can't ignore that he also rocket launched kids to death. You know,
Yep.
and what I just love, he represents so much, even in Fallen Order. His stuff in Fallen Order, if you play that level, it's great to have him there. His partisans, the people around him, are already kind of like, I don't know what Saw's doing. And I'm not saying, to me, it's not a right or wrong. It's just like, I love that he's there to ask these questions. And I kind of felt we needed him for Andor, and I love that we might be getting that.
Yeah, I think the fact that he is a Lucas character, right, is there's definitely this interest from Lucas, I think, starting with like that Clone Wars era, and he was developed for that other live action show that didn't happen. But there's like this focus to dive deeper and wrestle with some of the muddier moral issues of Star Wars in general, of the Jedi, of war, of everything, right?
Right.
And so he becomes this really needed character. I think that's why people keep wanting to bring him back in, because he's got this great perspective that we want to agree with him that he's this one character who has total clarity that this fight is worth having and in fact must happen. There's no question. There's no wringing of hands. The Empire is evil and they must be brought down. But then he also continually offers this, but I'm willing, how far are we willing to go in that fight? How we fight the battle matters. So he becomes this reflection of lots of Jedi thoughts of, at times Jedi really accept violence, but it's also very important to them to ask, what kind of violence, or how is the violence happening, and why is the violence happening? He's communicating to this conversation about the Clone Wars that, were the Jedi kind of half in, half out? Did they not go far enough to end the war? He is this great reflection of Anakin in lots of ways. physically, losing, being covered in the scars of war, both emotional and physical. And this idea that you can lose your soul while you're fighting, even if you're fighting for something good and pure.
Right.
It's just he is a fascinating character by himself, and then he's an entryway into looking at the morality of every other character around him.
Really, especially for Cassian and what we see at the beginning of Rogue One, killing Tivik, and how that, the stuff he says to Jyn at the end of why he wants to be there and why this all kind of needs to be worth something, to summarize probably badly. But I just, it just makes a lot of sense for what I want this series to do. And again, I always have to check my own expectations. It's just, and I've said for years, I've said it recently, so I apologize for repeating it, but I love those 19 years between episode 3 and episode 4. It's just so rich for me. And the Jedi and all those kind of things. That whole thing I used to say often about I like the war over the lore. That's what I mean. The pew 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 of it all is definitely there. But just as we dug in more and more to what the fight was, my view of the rebellion was in 1983 as a 7-year-old, good guys, bad guys, and Star Wars is like, make a choice. There's 2 options there. But just how you get there and how you raise an army and how you have the Noah Jabels and all the people in Rogue One. I just the possibilities are endless to really have some tough, important conversations inside the Star Wars universe and without it through these characters.
Yeah.
And Saul represents a lot of that.
Yeah, no, what you're really making me think of too is like, Saw is a character that I think speaks to how much The Last Jedi is in sync with the questions that Star Wars storytelling has always been raising, going back to the creation of characters like Saw. If you're talking about a question of how do you fight a war and keep your soul, that's what Rose's epiphany is about, right? Of that we're going to save what we love, not fight what we hate. And, that invites you to go back to Saw and so like, is he saving anything, or is he just hate the Empire? And is that where he's, getting out of step,
Yeah. Again. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. Please go for it.
No, Rebel Rising, I even forget how much I love that book, if that makes sense. Beth Revis's YA book of, younger Jyn and those years, filling in some of the blanks of that story. It's good for a lot of those reasons. It makes Jyn just even more of a powerful character for me. But the Saw stuff is fascinating there. And even because the stuff with Infus showing up and young Jyn going, hey, he's gonna overlook you too. Saw is too. He's not perfect, and I don't need him to be, and that's not the point of him.
No.
And I think it's just it's juicy, tantalizing conversation starters.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just thinking about how he might interact with whatever Cassian is dealing with is really fascinating.
And have Genevieve O'Reilly's Mom Mothma back in the Mothma versus Guerrera war that is always happening is intriguing as well. Another thing came out of this kind of the rumor mill this week, Joseph. I don't necessarily want to talk about the rumor. I think there's even kind of a silly nature to it, as some of the rumors often are. But it got me thinking about something else. There was this idea floating around that Ben Mendelsohn could be back as Krennic, and at this point it's like, great, bring everyone back, from even we got Sergeant Melshi might be back. That's just Rogue One, the prequel 2.0, whatever it is. I want to talk about that too, but the rumor itself is kind of, I don't know. I'm not here to insult anyone. I just, it's like, hey, he might be. Of course he might be. Who knows? But it got me thinking about Andor being so directly tied to Rogue One, which is when Andor got announced, there was a lot of the conversation from a lot of Star Wars fans, casual and not casual, of like, really? Not only do we know he dies, but really, is this what we want? And I think you and I have been on the train for a while.
Yes.
But this series is more and more directly tied to what we saw in Rogue One, which is interesting to me because Rogue One's stature, not unlike Solo's stature, has grown over the years. Even though it made a ton of money and was well received, I hear more often than not now, oh, Rogue One's my favorite of the new films.
Yeah. I mean, it is the one that I think, even if people had kind of like, this part doesn't work for me, it's not a lightning rod for negativity. It is more often a lightning rod for excitement and joy. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. Well said. The nitpicks now, you and I talk about, sometimes the second act doesn't pop for much of this. It's not the same conversation. We can't deny that, which is great. So, and I love it because I think that movie, there's so many little tiny things to be appreciated in there, including Krennic. So do I want Krennic back? Yeah, I want the middle management prequel version of him. I'd love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Bring Krennic back. That's great by me. Let Ben Mendelsohn have another bad business meeting with Darth Vader. I'd be thrilled. That'd be great. He's been to that castle before. That'd be great. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Krennic. I'm not at all concerned about it being too much of a prequel to Rogue One. I think it should be. To me, what has always been exciting about Andor is Rogue One tells this tip of the iceberg story about Cassian Andor of, for years, I have had to do things that I feel bad about in service of this greater cause. And the things that I've done, like shooting Tivik, have been eaten at me and building. And my response is to make sure that it was all worth it by backing Jyn and going to Scarif. But if you're starting from the point of, this is a story of a rebel spy, great espionage, having, potentially things like I have to buddy up to someone that and pretend to care about somebody I don't. I have to be violent when I don't want to be. All that stuff is incredibly emotionally compelling. And in order to tell that emotionally compelling story, he's going to be dealing with the machinery that we're familiar with from Rogue One. He's a part of the Rebel Alliance. If Melshi is at that time, great. Thrilled that Mon Mothma is going to be there. Thrilled, with Bail appearances. If he's caught up in am I okay with what I'm doing question, is it great that maybe he didn't meet Saw, but this is all based on a mission Saw came up with and handed to Mon Mothma. Yeah. And, are we going to get the story of that? All of it just all of it tracks of why these characters would be here. This does not at all feel like, to me, of like, we got to throw in all our favorites from Rogue One. All of the characters that we think might be there make sense there.
To go back to something I used to say often, and many people would say often, but back in 2014, 2015, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Still maintain that. Great stuff, Joseph. Great thoughts on this. There's no need to rank anything, but I am really excited for Andor.
I am very excited for Andor because I continue to think that people who are watch Mandalorian, they like Star Wars, but maybe they're not like all in. Maybe they're not reading every tidbit. I think so many people are going to be so surprised by what Andor can be and blown away by it. That's my real hope and excitement. I can't wait for everybody to go, holy bleep, this is amazing.
This is good stuff. That's the hope, and that's as Andor himself would say, it's all you need, just a good hope. Good TV shows are built on hope. All right. Well, that is a look at the news. Longer look this week. A lot of little tidbits to get to, and we didn't even touch on all the things there. A lot of other things floating around. We understand. So thank you for letting us discuss these items before we take a quick break and reset. As always, we like to give a ForceCenter recommends an audiobook we think you should try out on us. Joseph, we're going to a different era.
That is right. We are once again recommending Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Not only do we really love this novel, this story, it is the launching point of the High Republic, and it's really looking like you can follow the big picture story by only getting some of the books. The next one, Rising Storm, is coming out, so you could listen to Light of the Jedi. You could be all ready for Rising Storm, which is coming very soon.
To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. All right, we're going to take a break. On the other side, we got wonderful questions to get to today on ForceCenter. Hey, ForceCenter friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, ForceCenter's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars-loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more, so be sure to head on over to JennyLanda.com, that's JennyLanda.com, for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138. Welcome back to ForceCenter, the 331st edition of the big show, the main show, the superstar destroyer of our fleet, a back-to-tank of talk. Joseph so wonderfully coined the phrase earlier today. So let's get into some wonderful questions from our ForceCenter friends today, Joseph.
Yeah, we got 2 questions from Twitter as always, and 2 questions from our patrons on Patreon. We're going to go to Twitter first. First up, Brittany Lockwood. Brittany says, if an existing character were to have a secret or previously unknown sibling, whose sibling would you most want to meet? This is a great question. Star Wars certainly has a history of siblings and surprise siblings. So great to think what other sibling surprises might be out there in the galaxy. Where did your mind go, Ken? Did you have a knee-jerk reaction of this is the sibling I want to see?
So, no, I didn't. And I was like, do I do silly? Do I do, Dexter, Jetster, sister, Judy Jetster? Like, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm sitting around here in my studio here, and I was trying to, sometimes I'll go off the cuff and like, what does my heart tell me? And other times I just want to have something. And I looked up, and I have a listener, supporter, Trey Thompson, aka Definitely Not Trey on YouTube, had sent me a while ago a Mighty Mug, those the precursor to Funko Pops. He sent me one, and it's Grand Moff Tarkin. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's the answer. I want Tarkin to have a sister that left the family, left the name, left Edu, or Eridu, excuse me, and fought, just fought against that family and that culture of vibe there. Got the kind of that power is victory mindset. Domination is the only way to survive and win, the Tarkin thing. And how maybe just when the galaxy became a spiritual figure. I'm not saying like a Star Wars version of a nun, but that's not unlike what I'm thinking of. Just a spiritual figure helping the hurt souls of the galaxy. Almost like, I'm sorry, my family and my brother's doing this.
I love justice for Tarkins.
Yeah.
And I don't remember all the details of Tarkin's backstory in the Tarkin book. I remember the broad strokes. But
Yeah.
even if a sister isn't mentioned, I love the idea that there could be a sister who split off.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I didn't have time to look up the family line, but exactly. You got my spirit of it, of just like, boom, this one here. It's a prominent character,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. My mind went to 3 places. One of them was knee jerk.
Yeah.
And my response to many things is of course Obi-Wan Kenobi. Big fan of the character, and there's a lot of talk about him. So sometimes you could ask me of like, what's your favorite season? And I might blurt out Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I'll say this. I would say for well-known characters having a previously unknown sibling, Kenobi or even Mace having a sister that they just didn't know about because their parents had more kids after they joined the Jedi Order. Meeting the sibling of a Jedi who either just was not born with Force powers, even though their sibling was, or did have the powers but didn't end up with the Jedi, never train for whatever reason. To see that perspective on what does a family member think about, a sibling they never knew because they got, brought into the Jedi Order when they were incredibly young. That's kind of a fascinating perspective that we haven't got to see.
I like this idea. Can we get a good picture on this?
And then the other one for me, which is actually sort of implied as a possibility of future storytelling, is Janna or even Finn's families. It's one of my favorite beats in Rise of Skywalker, where Lando very kindly says, to Janna, about not knowing really where she's from, which would also imply not knowing her true family if she has one, in terms of siblings, of, let's go find out. And this idea, that one line is just, it's so kind, and it's so powerful about connection, which so much about Rise of Skywalker is about connection. But it's also just suggests that look, the First Order did this awful thing of taking people from their homes. That's a thing that we need to be doing now, is reconnecting as many surviving members of the First Order with their true families. That's an interesting story to be told.
Love that. The healing that would be found in storylines like that. Great.
Yeah. And then my final jokey answer is the Bendu. Yeah. Give me the Bendu's, sister Sendu. Sure.
Yeah. I love that. It's great.
Yeah, be great fun. Great fun. Great question, Brittany, and lots to be explored there. Surprise siblings, a grand tradition of Star Wars. We're going to move on to a question from Stephen M. Stephen asks, what happened to the wounded clones during and after the Clone Wars? If they were just wounded enough to not be able to fight, but still alive, were they kept somewhere to live out the rest of their lives, or were they sent out into the galaxy to make their own way? Ken, what do you think about this, about wounded clones who are not in the war anymore?
This is an intriguing question, one of those fun, kind of realistic, logistic questions. It also made me think of therapy Ewoks and Aftermath, which is a different time, different era. But also, what it made me think about that is how the New Republic maybe would deal with this issue and rebel soldiers who were injured, and how the Empire would probably deal with it. A little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, where'd you go?
My idea was if it was pre the fall of the Republic, I would imagine there would be kind of a transition program, finding work or duties to serve the greater good on Camino still. I mean, 99 comes to mind of just, I don't think they'd, leave a clone behind, so to speak, to make it sound like a bumper sticker catchphrase, but just, I think it would have been dealt with. Right. So the idea that, there might be clones out there who did injure out or no longer in service, and what would have happened to their chips too, and all those kind of things. And what do you do? As I think we're dealing with a Bad Batch, what do you do when that chip goes off and there aren't necessarily Jedi around or other soldiers around? What would happen then? It's kind of a serious tone, serious question, but I think there's some of that there. Post fall, immediate, I don't have high hopes for the survival of those injured clones, to be frank, to be honest.
Yeah, we are working in the same ballpark of thought. There's so much in the early parts of the Clone Wars animated show in particular about how much wounded clones were cared for. There's, we see hospital stations, or there's stakes at different times where that's about medical supplies to wounded clones. The idea that clones are wounded and we need to help them is very present in the early Clone Wars animated series. And that to me speaks that, the Republic is, trying to help the clones, taking responsibility for the clones. So I feel like during the actual Clone Wars, when the Republic is still basically functioning, that, there's some program for, if we can't get you back out and fighting, then you go back to Camino and you do data entry about the war, or I don't think they would get cut loose to the galaxy. I think they would still be in service of the Republic, but just not in a combat oriented way.
Agreed.
I think during the Empire, no.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any nice retirement. And I know that we continue to see clones in some of the comic books with Vader in particular. That Charles Soule run that happens pretty quickly after Revenge of the Sith. But I kind of hope, depending on how all the timeline shakes out, that Bad Batch can get into exactly this. Of what ultimately happens to the clones, not just the wounded ones, but all of them. Is the story that the Empire does just phase them out, or is the story at some point where they're wiped out? Because that's a possibility.
Well, because even you saying, does the Empire phase them out? Like, well, that term does not have good connotation in the Empire.
Right. If Darth Sidious said to you, "I'm going to phase you out," you would know that's a horrible thing is going to happen to you.
That's a big giant gulp. Uh-oh. Yeah. And look, Rex touched upon in this last episode, there's others out there type of thing. And, even inferring that not every clone's chip maybe went off or they had the same reaction. There's some questions that we might get in. I would love to see that. Cutler Quain's a great example. But like he was already out, and that was a different story. So to have that kind of different kind of take on that would be interesting.
Yeah, and I mean in Rex and obviously Gregor and Wolf we know survive, but we don't know exactly how they escape the clone purge. I think is a fun question. Intriguing. I'll go with intriguing. But great question about the clones, Stephen M. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts on that one before we move on, Ken?
No, that's a like I said, realistic, logistic kind of based question, but I love that kind of stuff.
Love it too. So we're gonna go to patrons on Patreon. This comes to us from Chris Lentz. Chris shares some background thoughts in this question, so it's a little bit of a longer one as we encourage and welcome from our patrons. So here we go, Ken.
Mm.
Chris says, one of my favorite scenes in the saga is in the most lambasted film, the Coruscant sports bar scene at the beginning of Attack of the Clones. Maybe it's not a sports bar. Seems to be way too many attractive people there for a sports bar. But while Anakin and Obi-Wan are looking around for Zam Wesell, you get flashes of what's on the television, the space television. We see pod racing, some droid form of football, and probably a few others. Chris says, I've long dreamed of a piece of Star Wars in-world journalism by Clegg Holdfast of Pod Racing Quarterly, where he visits a few different sports bars or whatever he'd call such an establishment. Think Jack Buck, Rick Riley, or long-form Buster Olney. But that brings up the question, what do you think different sports fans establishments would look like in the galaxy? I think it's pretty clear. Chalmers is more of a gruff anti-establishment crowd. I'm more interested in the joint where the Spaceball game is about to kick off on one screen. A swoop bike race is on another, and the Duros next to me is annoyed that they don't carry his favorite domestic. What's that place look like? What do you hope the establishments for sports lovers in space contain? And what are your thoughts on space sports in general? So a lot of good questions, a lot of good and funny reflection on sports and sports bars in Star Wars. Wanted to kick this one off, Ken, about some of these questions we discussed, not all of them, and not the real specific sports element. But I wanted to give a plug for our bar crawl episode of the deep dive, where we kind of went through a lot of the bars and discussed some of these really fun questions of what is the Earth comparison? What kind of bar is this? Would it carry your favorite domestics, or would it be a snootier place, or all those kind of things? We dive into that and in the kind of strange sports, but also hip after work before a show vibe of the Outlander Club. You can check out some of those thoughts on the bar crawl episode. But where do you go with this, Ken? Sports in Star Wars? What you want a good sports bar in Star Wars to look like? What are your thoughts there?
Man, I have a ton of thoughts. This is a great question, and I being a sports fan myself, some great stuff here, Chris. And first of all, a sports bar and too many attractive people to be in there for a sports bar. LA is a little different. I'll just say I don't feel at home in a lot of sports bars in LA. This is great.
Yes, not a huge sports fan, but I've been in sports bars in Los Angeles and sports bars in Wisconsin, and there's some different vibes.
There's some true words never been spoken. And also, I will say, long form Buster Olney. I recommend the book, The Last Night of the Yankee Dynasty by Buster Olney. Great one. And Jack Buck, great Jack Buck, one of my favorite announcers. We'll see you tomorrow night. So here we go. Let me dive into this here. First of all, Chalmers. I used to live around the corner from Chalmers as a NFL affiliated sports bar. I think it's like Starlight or something like that. This is my old house. And I went in there once and was like, yeah, this ain't for me. I like a little bit more the Outlander Club vibe in my sport. I like a little Dave and Buster's. Play some, skee ball, or we'll get some gift cards and watch some baseball on the TV. So I think that's what the Outlander Club, even Canto Bite, for better or worse. And there's a lot of worse maybe hidden in that. I love the lesson that Rose has for all of us maybe in the moment. But I was just watching Last Jedi this weekend for our main show. I feel Finn when he walks in, when he's all like, whoa.
Wow.
Joseph, you've been with me in Vegas. I'm like, we got to go to the wind today. I got to step into the wind today. So I'm feeling a lot of that there. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see it. Maybe I think you can do it more in like a Mando show. I don't want to say Andor. I don't think that's maybe the spot for it, but I think there's these programs, even Bad Batch could dive into just what it actually is. Do they follow sports? Who's a fan? We know the Cleek Holdfast Pod Racing Quarterly thing. That's a great poll, and everyone's heard me talk about that. I would love a ESPN 30 for 30 style look at pod racing. Who are the fans? Anakin seems to be a fan.
He's got a poster.
You could work it in a way that doesn't stand out. That's not that fits into the world. That's not super silly. I think you can potentially be silly with it, but be like our two. I don't necessarily know if it's members of the Bad Batch, but our two clone troopers. At some point, you see Quadraneros got eliminated in the race yesterday. That stuff could really work and not feel out of place. So I know I'm rambling. I'm excited. I'm talking about sports and Star Wars. I think there's a lot there to what Chris is saying here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think both the sports in Star Wars are interesting and I think really worth exploring more. It is got such a great tip of the iceberg scene in Attack of the Clones, where you see all the different sports on the space TVs, and so you know that people are watching these sports, betting on these sports, invested on them, that they are galactic as well as local, right?
Yes.
Is one of the big things for me, of like, we get that picture of pod racing's a big event on Tatooine, but this idea that it's being, things like that are being broadcast out to the galaxy, and there's galactic interest. So great. For me, I have two thoughts in terms of seeing more sporting events in Star Wars. Beyond those television snippets, I feel like we see a lot of racing of different kinds, and a decent amount of like kind of, arena fighting, right? Like the Gamorrean Guard underground wrestling ring, right? Ultimate Gamorrean fighter that we saw there. I would love to see more of football, basketball, hockey, anything that's kind of like a match, a sport. And I do not mean this as an insult at all, but the kind of sports that is two teams competing to put a thing in another thing. That has like a little bit more formal rules. And what's that like in Star Wars? If you strip it back, and it really is like one team on this side, the other team on this side, and then they both compete to put the thing in the thing on the other person's side in it. But it's weird, and it's Star Wars, and it involves aliens and technology that we can't imagine. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
Look, tell you what, a place where you could really develop it is High Republic era, where you could take time with it, where it's new, and maybe it fades away. Maybe it's something we don't know by the original trilogy or whatever. Doesn't matter to me. But like Quidditch is the ultimate example of an in-world, in-story sport that makes sense. It makes sense for what's going on. You can get behind it. You can almost root for it in your own way as a fan. Out of the
people would debate you on whether it makes sense as a sport, but beyond that, yes.
I just remember going to LA Comic-Con and watching a live action version in front of me with people walking around with brooms between their legs. I'm not making fun. It was like my first convention ever, when I was just kind of really truly emerging into this nerd world after being hidden for so long. And I was just like, I'm watching 10, 20, whatever the rules are. People play Quidditch at a convention hall. But where it's just like, it doesn't, it's not poking fun at either any side of the conversation, but just makes sense. And I think High Republic, now I think about it, you could really dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love that. That would be great to get almost, that level of detail and impact on the rest of the world that Quidditch has would be really, really cool.
Because if you got Starlight Beacon and you want whoever's on the Starlight Beacon, you want a sense of normalcy and connecting the galaxy, and, sports is a way to do that.
Right.
Cricket. I was on my stream the other day having a conversation about cricket, a sport I'm very familiar with from afar, but don't know intimately. I was even asking one of my Andrew Cook, a listener from New Zealand. I was just like, if I go to a cricket match, what's the food there? I know I get hot dogs, Cracker Jacks, and a beer at the ball game here at LA, but what do I expect there? It's an interesting, just kind of cultural conversation. You could bring that to Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the High Republic, and who knows, maybe it is in books that are going to be coming to our homes very soon. Because sports is so many things, but one of the big things is it's sharing culture, right? Everything from the actual sport to how fandom works to what do you eat when you're watching it? I love that. In terms of the specific question about like what other kind of sports bars, for myself, I've spent some time in the UK. I'd love to see like a real British, Scottish, Irish pub. I know there are differences between all those, but in general, that vibe of it's been there for thousands of years. There's a lot of wood. It feels really warm. Maybe there are, some rooms upstairs. There's a neighborhood feel. There's some weird space starts, but then there's also this, other room where just a bunch of people are gathered just to watch, the game. And a thing that is like really culturally interesting and fun in Los Angeles and in many other places, but I speak of Los Angeles because it's what I know of. Like there are those British pubs where people gather at odd hours to watch soccer, right, or football. Because that's when you can watch it. And that would be a really interesting scene to me of like, if somebody's on like one planet, if you're on Corellia, but you're a big fan of Malastare sports. So you got to go to this weird Corellia pub that has a Malastare flavor in the middle of the night to watch the Malastare match. Like
That's
that
great.
sounds really fun to me.
That's great. I love that idea. Yeah, good pubs are great areas. And you made me think, because you talked about darts in Aunt Z's bar in Resistance. There's some kind of bar like sports going on there, right? Gosh,
Yeah, and
yeah,
there's some like you were pointing out, there's some like video game kind of business going on at Sid's and Bad Batch.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the clone, the battle droid slot, slot machine, video slot machine.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I love that kind of stuff. You made me think of something. This is unrelated. There's a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, just about Irish pubs, and I watched it, and it was one of the most fascinating, in-depth and boring documentaries I've ever watched, and I loved every minute, because it really was just like, and now here's this pub, and now here's this one. Check it out if you guys are a fan of Irish pubs.
Yeah, go down to your local. That would be wonderful.
Mm.
Any other thoughts on that big topic of space sports and Star Wars?
Yeah, not much. We've talked about this stuff before, but the crazy caffeine fueled passion pouring out of my soul right now about sports and Star Wars, I didn't realize it was maybe as there as much as I thought. So thank you, Chris, for that question.
Yeah, great question. Here we go to our final question from Garrett McDowell. Garrett says, "Hello, ForceCenter friends." Hello, Garrett. I recently just graduated from college. Woohoo! But in one of my final classes, we discussed the definitions of the two basic human needs. Being a lifelong Star Wars fan, obviously, the galaxy far, far away was the first thing that came to mind. Firstly, one of the two basic human needs is to join with others in a cooperative effort to achieve something great. Secondly, it is to be a unique and separate individual who is valued and respected in one's own right. For myself, one character where this concept is particularly evident is Anakin.
Mm.
Given those two needs, what other characters do you feel most experience this journey? Thanks for all the great content, guys. Cheers. Cheers to you, Garrett, and congrats on the college graduation.
Yeah.
Ken, this is great. Great question. A great life perspective to think about.
Yeah.
Where does your mind go? Who do you go to?
Well, first of all, I'll go to Garrett. Congratulations. I've known Garrett for a few years. This is a question I kind of knew was coming. I love that the Force willed that it ended up in this episode. I actually met Garrett at some conventions years ago. So congratulations on that college journey, Garrett. Big Star Wars fan indeed. So this one, I went to two. There's possibly a lot of answers, but I focused on two. It's characters that we talk about a lot here, and I think for good reason, because they represent things like this. So I went right for the big one, Joseph. Leia. I went to Leia because I see this as personal, especially Leia, Princess of Alderaan, really put this in focus for me. Just this personal desire to help and to use her status, her resources, all driven by her heart. And then that really goes beyond once she learns kind of maybe more truth about her parents and what they're involved in, and those dinner parties, what they really are. She takes it all and plugs into the bigger picture. So she truly wants to establish her own identity and how she helps and what she's trying to do and what she's trying to accomplish. And then just immediately takes that and wants to put it in the big picture.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think Leia is a great character to really pull out these ideas, because even just in the original trilogy, those books are so great. Leia, Princess Alderaan, and Bloodline. But even in the original trilogy, she is somebody who is absolutely committed to the kind of the first part of that of being in a cooperative effort to achieve something great, and almost to the point of not allowing herself to be a unique and separate individual. Right. I think that's so much her story of falling in love with Han, is being honest that she needs to be fulfilled as an individual as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great stuff. And about all of this, not unlike Padme. Right?
Yes.
That and Padme could be an answer as well. The other one I went to, then I'll kick it back to you here, is Infant's Nest. We talk about Infant's Nest a lot. We don't get a lot of time with her, and we want more time with Infant's Nest as a character. She knows who she is to me. And she knows where she comes from. She is honoring where she comes from, her story and her legacy, her family's legacy, her mother's legacy, the legacy that we believe she's passing on and will pass on. She knows where she comes from. And it's a very unique and individual experience, but then she puts that all on the line to help so many who are not like herself in the details, but herself in the suffering that they're all going through. And to me, that's someone who is very much, who she is, and you also know where she wants to go with her causes and her purpose.
I think that's great. Yeah, somebody who is very clear of their definition of who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. And then, wanting to expand that from that individual perspective to a larger group perspective is that's pretty much what Enfys Nest is doing.
Yeah.
I really love this because it's a big part of Star Wars that I think is really important, and I think it's one that I get a lot of joy in, and sometimes one of those moments where Star Wars kind of helps me reframe thinking about the real world or my own life. This idea that there's so much in Star Wars that is about the individual. It is about, well, these choices have been laid before you. Only you can decide your destiny. No one can choose it for you. You can pick a million lines in Star Wars that are about an individual making the choices that define themselves. So there's a lot that celebrates the need for the individual to know and understand and be at peace with themselves. But then Star Wars is also so much about society and community and being selfless and doing things for the greater good, and found family, and the idea that everyone has value in the people that you might look down on, like Jar Jar or the Gungans or the Ewoks, like that, or Dio. Like everyone has value, and so much in Rise of Skywalker being about, when we all band together, that's when we can really make a difference. So Star Wars has these twin poles of, you gotta know who you are, but then you also gotta value and contribute to the group too. And for me, I think this question, when I read it, I was thrilled because, like, this is Rey for me. This is what I think is unique and important about Rey's journey. Is I think this is there for many, many characters, but I think in some ways the focus on this group thought versus the individual thought is a lot of what defines Rey's journey. Because when we meet Rey, she can already take care of herself. She can stand on her own 2 feet and get things done, right? And what she wants is connection and belonging. She wants that first part, right? She wants to connect to a group and be a part of a group. And so a lot of her journey is about finding and realizing connection. But then she also really explicitly needs to figure out her identity, right? Because she has this power and she doesn't know what to do with it. And then she's offered all of these other people telling her who she should be, that she's defined by being no one. She's defined by being a Palpatine. She's defined by letting Luke, Han, and Leia just tell her who to be. And Rise of Skywalker is about her dealing with that individual part while also achieving this goal that she's had to be a part of something larger than herself. So it really, really, her journey really celebrates that both things are important. It is incredibly important to decide for yourself who you want to be so you can feel complete and valued as an individual. But then as individuals, it is a strength to want connection and belonging and to long to be a part of something larger than yourself as well.
So wait, you're telling me I shouldn't be a bearded grump on an island?
Look, is somebody who actually does have a beard and was grumpy just earlier today. I understand the temptation, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, the individual is important. The group is important. And I love that Garrett's question really, really focused on that.
No, it's great stuff. And yeah, the Rey thing, beautiful as always, Joseph. But just like why, you've always yourself said you want to grow up to be like Rey, and it's just why I keep revisiting that story and just revisiting some of the moments with Luke and Last Jedi inside the Unity tree. That scene, it's one of becoming maybe one of my more favorite Star Wars scenes that I hadn't always focused on before. Just him, like, who are you? Where are you from? Nowhere, Jakku. It's a great scene for a lot of different reasons, but focusing on her, Rey, Daisy's choices in that scene, it factors in a lot of what you're talking about. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So great question, Garrett. Any other thoughts, Ken?
No, great stuff, Garrett. You're in the real world now. I don't even know what that means. Welcome to the party.
Yes. Beyond the twin suns, out into adventure. Garrett, Chris, Stephen, and Brittany, thank you for all the great questions. That's it for the questions, Ken.
Absolutely. That's it for us this week. Great stuff. Bigger news section. A lot to look at and get excited for in Star Wars. And that's why we're here celebrating Star Wars from the center of the galaxy. Back to tank of Star Wars talk. That's what we do here. Printed on a t-shirt. We can be found on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. We're on Instagram, YouTube as well. Our Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. Podcasts available on Anchor, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Amazon Music, and Spotify. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. You can support us directly at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Thank you so much for those that support us over there. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to kennapzok.com. Check me out over at the Good People Association as well at the GPA.fun. We do a lot of charity work over there, and some of that's been bleeding into the things we talk about here in Force Center. Joseph and I always like to highlight groups and organizations from the real world that we love to connect with and plug as well. And because of that, I'm highlighting the Trevor Project, which is something that we're working with right now over there. Check out the Trevor Project at thetrevorproject.org, really focusing on helping the LGBTQ plus youth who, quite frankly, sometimes, unfortunately, still needs the support, needs the help. It's always getting better, but we're not at the finish line yet. In fact, I don't think we'll ever be at the finish line. So plug in with them. It's a great group to support at thetrevorproject.org. Joseph, what's going on for you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok in particular, I'm having some fun with my Star Wars adventures with doing some little videos about all my action figures. And it's just great
So fun
to spend some quality time with my action figures. So thanks for everyone who has been watching those and engaging with those. So all the social media, my handle is at Joseph Scrimshaw. If you're interested in any of my other comedy adventures, albums, future shows, other podcasts, that's all on my website at josephscrimshaw.com. And the thing I would like to plug is a project called Vote Forward. Their website is votefwd.org, and it is a place where you can sign up to write personalized letters just to encourage people to use their power and get out and vote. I believe they have a new project coming soon, so if that sounds like the kind of thing you might be interested in, you can check out their website. Again, that's votefwd.org.
Great stuff indeed. Fun, full episode. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time here on Force Center.